Hey, would-be farmer here from Central Florida. I'd like to talk about permaculture ethics a little bit. What are ethics? Ethics are moral behaviors that drive us to good outcomes, to good decisions, to drive us to do good things. Well, permaculture came together in the mid to late 70s via Bill Mollison, a professor from the University of Tasmania, and a college student, David Holmgren, who was studying environmental design, I believe, which was a relatively new concept at the time. So from the way I look at permaculture and the development of permaculture and the ethics is it covered a period of probably 25 years. Permaculture 1 was published in 1978, and there are 4 books I'm going to reference. The first one is Permaculture 1 in 1978, and that was written by Bill Mollison and David Holmgren. The second book is the Permaculture, A Designer's Manual by Bill Mollison, and that was 1988 publishing, I believe. Third one is an Introduction to Permaculture, which is 1991. That was also by Bill Mollison. The fourth book was 2002 by David Holmgren, and that is called Permaculture, Principles and Pathways Beyond Sustainability. So from 1978 to 2002, about 25-year period, is when I believe the permaculture ethics and principles were put together. So I am going to go ahead and read from a few of these to give us an idea of what Mollison and Holmgren said about permaculture ethics. So I'm going to go to Permaculture 1. And this is, Permaculture 1 was generally a book about land management and sustainable living, if you will, for humans. And it mostly focused on plants and animals that can be used for the benefit of man. So there wasn't at the time a huge focus on social issues, although I will tell you at the end of the book, the end of the manuscript, the end of Permaculture 1, they have as a final statement, "We do not believe that a society can survive if it lacks values, directions, and ethics, and thus relinquishes control over its future destiny." So there's their big statement on ethics that I saw in this book. Direct address. "We do not believe that a society can survive if it lacks values, direction, and ethics, and thus relinquishes control over its future destiny. This book is a contribution to the taking of such control." Okay, so that's Permaculture 1. The next book I want to talk about is Permaculture, A Designer's Manual by Bill Mollison, the epic 600-page book that many in the permaculture field call the Bible. And this is page 2, first chapter, and the subheading is Ethics. "In earlier days, several of us researched community ethics as adopted by older religious and cooperative groups, seeking for universal principles to guide our own actions. Although many of these guidelines contained as many as 18 principles, most of these can be included in the 3 below, and even the second and third arise from the first. The ethical basis of permaculture. 1. Care of the earth. Provision for all life systems to continue and multiply. 2. Care of people. Provision for people to access those resources necessary to their existence. 3. Setting limits to population and consumption. By governing our own needs, we can set resources aside to further the above principles." Okay, so I'll read those again real quickly. 1. Care of the earth. Provision for all life systems to continue and multiply. 2. Care of people. Provision for people to access these resources necessary to their existence. 3. Setting limits to population and consumption. By governing our own needs, we can set resources aside to further the above principles. Now, the first 2 ethics, care of the earth, or what has been shortened and easily remembered as earth care. And the second, care of people, which we remember as people care. So earth care and people care, relatively straightforward, pretty easy to remember. And I think most would say, yeah, we need to care for the land, we need to care for the earth, okay. And we need to care for people, yeah, we need to look out for our neighbors, okay, we get that. I don't think we can say we're doing a very good job of either of those just offhand. But those haven't changed from 1988, when the Permaculture Designer's Manual was put out, until today. Those haven't shifted. Those haven't been, they've been elaborated on, they've been talked about. But basically, earth care and people care have always been there in the permaculture world. The third one, setting limits to population and consumption. It's changed a little bit, and I'll go over that as we look at a couple more books. Okay, so that is the Permaculture, a Designer's Manual, and there's extensive pages on ethics, and I would recommend the book for sure. Okay, now this book, Permaculture, a Designer's Manual, 600 pages, and it is a manual. It is dense. Just as most people are not going to want to sit down and read a tech manual before they go to bed at night. You've got so much stuff going on in a tech manual. For example, if it's a manual on a refrigerator, for example, you got something on the compressor, something on the condenser, something on the drip pan, something on the. If it's a manual about a car, you're going to have a section on brakes, and you're going to have a section on the engine, and a manifold, and on and on and on. It's something to reference. It's something to go to. It is not easy to read. You're not going to read it like a weekend novel if you're up in a cabin in the mountains somewhere. So the next book he put out was called Introduction to Permaculture in 1991, 3 years after. And it is an easier read. It is kind of a synopsis of the designer's manual. But he's got a pretty good bit on ethics here. And I'll go ahead and read some of that. It's an entire page, page 3. Permaculture ethics. Ethics are moral beliefs and actions in relation to survival on our planet. In permaculture, we embrace a threefold ethic: care of the earth, care of the people, and dispersal of surplus time, money, and materials towards that end. So as you can see, it's earth care and people care. And then the third ethic he speaks about: dispersal of surplus time, money, and materials towards these end. So it went from setting limits to population and consumption to dispersal of surplus time, money, and materials towards these ends. The third ethic is basically being smart about our consumption. It's about being smart about our offspring and our reproduction and our excesses. If we have surpluses, if we have extra food, it needs to be dispersed. And dispersal of surplus time, money, and materials towards these ends. So if I have excess whatever, let's say I come into a lot of money, am I just going to put it away for my future? Is that what I do? I just sock it away, sock everything I can away. I just get millions and just sock it away. Well, according to this, in permaculture, we embrace a threefold ethic: care of the earth, care of the people, and dispersal of surplus time, money, and materials towards these ends. So this is sharing. According to Bill Mollison, Introduction to Permaculture, Bill Mollison, ethics are moral beliefs and actions in relation to survival on our planet. In permaculture, we embrace a threefold ethic: care of the earth, care of people, and dispersal of surplus time, money, and materials towards these ends. Care of the earth means care of all living and non-living things: soils, species and their varieties, atmosphere, forests, microhabitats, animals, and waters. It implies harmless and rehabilitative activities, active conservation, ethical and frugal use of resources, and right livelihood, working for useful and beneficial systems. Let's go to the third component of the basic care of Earth ethic, which is a contribution of surplus time, money, and energy to achieve the aims of Earth and people care. This means that after we have taken care of our basic needs and designed our systems to the best of our ability, we can extend our influence and energies to helping others achieve that aim. The permaculture system also has a basic life ethic, which recognizes the intrinsic worth of every living thing. A tree is something of value in itself, even if it has no commercial value for us. That it is alive and functioning is what is important. It is doing its part in nature, recycling biomass, providing oxygen and carbon dioxide for the region, sheltering small animals, building soils, and so on. So we see that the permaculture ethic pervades all aspects of environmental, community, economic, and social systems. Cooperation, not competition, is the key. Okay, he certainly is not describing capitalism run amok. Might makes right and power politics and the Machiavellian principle, and we got to take the Pacific Ocean, and we have the most horses and the best manpower and the better weapons and all, and we're smarter. No. We got to share. We got to share, folks. It's about sharing. That's okay. Well, that's Bill Mollison. Let's get back to some David Holmgren stuff. All right, let's go to 2002 book, Permaculture, Principles and Pathways Beyond Sustainability by David Holmgren. Ethics are the moral principles that are used to guide action towards good and right outcomes and away from bad and wrong outcomes. Ethics act as constraints on survival instincts and the other personal and social constructs of self-interest that drive human behavior in any society. They are culturally evolved mechanisms for more enlightened self-interest, a more inclusive view of who and what constitutes us, and a longer-term understanding of good and bad outcomes. Okay. He cites the first ethic, care of Earth. Rebuild nature's capital. Rebuild nature's capital. Care of people. Care of self, kin, and community. And then his third ethic, he calls it fair share. Set limits to consumption and reproduction and redistribute surplus. In the 1970s, these ethics were distilled from research into community ethics as adopted by older religious and cooperative groups. The third ethic, and even the second, can be seen as derived from the first. The ethics have been taught and used as simple and relatively unquestioned ethical foundations for permaculture design within the movement and within the wider global nation of like-minded people. Folks, there's your ethics. There's your ethics from Bill Mollison, the genius professor, David Holmgren, the genius student. That's over 25 years. Those are the books that they have written. I hope this has been helpful. And as every video I do, it's a matter of me studying some more and learning some more. So I hope you all benefit from this and share it with others if you would. Thanks.